All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see from the title, what we're going to be talking about today is how to rewire your mind to manifest on command. And as you can see from the overview, what we're going to be talking about more specifically is the power of the subconscious, uncovering hidden patterns, reprogramming the mind, embodiment and action, the review, and then your action items for the day or the next few days. So without further ado, let's get started and talk about the power of the subconscious. So if you don't understand the force of your subconscious, you'll always feel like life is just happening to you instead of through you. And this part of your mind is like the operating system behind the screen, running every program in the background without you actually even noticing. And the subconscious is what shapes your thoughts, your habits, and automatic reactions. And because of that, it ends up shaping your entire reality without your conscious permission. Now, scientists estimate that as much as 95% of your decisions and behaviors are driven by subconscious patterns. That means you're only consciously steering about 5% of the time, which is terrifying if you've never stopped to actually question what's actually driving the ship. Imagine trying to swim upstream while an invisible current is pulling you the other way. That's basically what happens when your subconscious programming conflicts with what you consciously want. And so neuroscience shows that once a neural pathway is reinforced enough times, it becomes your default response. This means that your subconscious doesn't just influence your reactions, it literally sets the rules for how you experience the world. The more you repeat the same thought, the stronger the neural pathway grows and the stronger the subconscious grip becomes. And over time, you find yourself living the same patterns on repeat because your brain has been wired to basically expect and reproduce them. And this is why positive thinking without any subconscious work doesn't necessarily stick. If your subconscious is still wired for lack or doubt, you'll automatically self-sabotage no matter how many conscious affirmations you throw at the wall. And it feels like two voices arguing in your head, but the subconscious will always win because it's automated and it's faster. And the only way to win is to rewire that deeper level so that the subconscious is no longer fighting your conscious goals. Now, once you see how much of your life is actually driven by hidden programming, the natural question becomes, how did those programs get there in the first place? So most of your subconscious blueprint was installed during childhood when your brain was in highly suggestible states. Before the age of 7, you absorbed the beliefs of your parents, teachers, and environment like a sponge without any critical filter. And those early impressions became the foundation for how you interpret money, love, self-worth, and success. If you repeatedly heard money doesn't grow on trees, that phrase didn't just stay there as a sentence, it became a law in your inner world. You grew up believing that resources are scarce, so even as an adult, you unconsciously repel opportunities or downplay your value. Now, the subconscious is heavily shaped by emotion. When something is tied to strong feelings like fear, shame, or joy, it sinks deep into the subconscious and becomes a core program. And these emotional anchors are why it's often so hard to shake old beliefs, even when you logically know that they don't serve you anymore. A child shamed for speaking up, for example, may grow into an adult that's terrified of self-expression, and no amount of conscious motivation will break through unless that emotional imprint is replaced with a new, stronger one. Now, recognizing how early and deeply these patterns were installed basically explains why so many people feel stuck repeating cycles that they desperately want to escape. So, look, the subconscious doesn't just shape your thoughts, it also controls your perception of reality. So two people can walk into the same room and experience completely different worlds because of the filters their subconscious has built. Your brain basically deletes, distorts, and generalizes information to match what it already believes, which means you're never seeing objective reality. You're seeing your programmed reality. If your subconscious believes you're not worthy of love, then you will literally miss signals of affection around you. And you'll either downplay them, dismiss them, or unconsciously sabotage them, and then you'll say, "See, I knew it." This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy or loop where the subconscious constantly proves itself right. And this is why cycles of lack, rejection, or struggle often feel unbreakable. Now, the beauty of this mechanism is that once you change the program, the filter changes too. You will start noticing possibilities and opportunities that were always there but invisible to you. And what you'll realize is that actually the world hasn't changed. you have. And this is where manifestation really begins to feel almost magical, quote unquote, because your outer world starts mirroring the inner blueprint. Now, once you grasp that the subconscious is not just shaping your actions, but also the very lens through which you see the world, well, the next step is learning how to uncover the exact patterns that are currently running your life. So let's talk about uncovering hidden patterns. So you can not rewire what you cannot see, and you cannot defeat what you refuse to acknowledge. There are limiting beliefs sitting quietly beneath the surface of your thoughts that are camouflaged as truths, like just the way things are, or the way things should be, or the way things could be. And so they can be almost unnoticeable, but they silently steer your choices, sabotage your actions, and bend your reality to fit their story. And so this is why shining a light on these hidden stories is basically non-negotiable if you really want to take control of your mind. The easiest way to identify your limiting beliefs is to look directly at your life. Your outer results are almost always an echo of your inner programming. They're nothing more than the echo of your inner programming. Every area where you feel stuck, struggle, or repeat negative cycles is basically proof that a limiting belief or a limiting subconscious pattern is in charge. And if you keep hitting the same wall no matter what you try, well, the wall is not outside of you. It's most likely inside your mind. So pay close attention to the statements you say in your head without actually thinking. Phrases like I can't, or I'm gonna try, or I'm not the type of person who, or that's just my luck. Those are not random thoughts. They are subconscious commands and suggestions that are being carried out in real time. And the words you use and the thoughts you have are the software of you. They program you, literally. And because these statements feel natural, you rarely question them, and that's how they stay alive. And the moment you start recognizing them as beliefs instead of facts, they begin to lose their power. So the same struggles show up again and again, disguised in different clothes. If you attract the same kind of toxic relationships, constantly lose money, or always get overlooked, well, that is not a coincidence. It's a subconscious loop that is basically replaying itself over and over again. And until the internal changes, you'll keep experiencing the same external. Life doesn't just hand you what you want, it hands you what you unconsciously expect through your thoughts and through your words. And once you start spotting the fingerprints of these limiting beliefs in your results, the next step is to really just dig deeper and figure out where they came from. So limiting beliefs don't appear out of nowhere. They're almost always planted in you by your environment, and most often in your earliest years when your subconscious was wide open. You absorbed rules about money, love, health, and worthiness from your parents, teachers, culture, and religion, and because you were too young to filter them, you basically accepted them as gospel. And those truths then hardened into invisible laws that you live by. Now, think back to the messages you constantly heard growing up. Did you hear money doesn't grow on trees, or don't get your hopes up, or people like us don't get ahead? Each of these phrases was like a seed that got planted in your subconscious soil, and over time it grew into a belief that now dictates how far you allow yourself to go. Now, if you grew up hearing your parents fight about bills, for example, you may unconsciously equate money with conflict. As an adult, you may subconsciously push money away just to avoid the stress, or you might spend it all just to avoid the stress. And so, if you were told to stop dreaming or to be realistic, you may now feel guilty even entertaining bigger visions for your life. So, another thing here is trauma or emotional experiences, especially painful ones, carve deep imprints into the subconscious. For instance, if you were abandoned, rejected, or humiliated, those moments may have solidified beliefs like I'm not lovable or I'll always be left behind. And the reason your brain does that is because it goes through heuristics. It basically creates these shortcuts of thinking that are a lot of the times faulty. And even decades later, those beliefs still color your relationships and cause you to unconsciously recreate the very situations that you're actually trying to escape. Now, the subconscious doesn't distinguish between old pain and new experience. It keeps replaying the same script until you rewrite it. And so once you acknowledge the roots of those beliefs, the next logical step is learning how to confront them directly instead of letting them hide in the shadows. So bringing a belief into the open is like shining sunlight on mold. It cannot necessarily survive in full awareness. The act of naming the belief, saying it out loud, and actually admitting its influence already weakens its hold. So the subconscious pattern loses a big part of its power the moment it is actually dragged into the conscious mind. So write down the areas where you feel most stuck and then ask yourself, what would someone have to believe in order to create this pattern? Then ask yourself multiple times if you have to, why would they believe it? What was the positive intention of the belief? And keep peeling back the layers until the raw belief reveals itself. For example, constant financial struggle may not just be about money. The core belief might be, I don't deserve abundance, or I'll never be good enough. And the goal is to get beyond the surface layer and uncover the deeper identity level belief. Now, the people around you often see your blind spots more clearly than you do. So you should also pay attention when others repeatedly point out the same weaknesses or habits to you. Instead of dismissing that criticism, you can use it as a mirror into your own subconscious. So for example, if multiple people tell you that you downplay your talents, well, it's a sign of an inner belief about unworthiness. The consistent external feedback is reflecting something about your internal programming. And the specific feedback, for example, points to a belief that you might not deserve recognition or aren't as valuable as others see you. When multiple people independently notice the same pattern, it's usually not coincidence, but rather your subconscious belief manifesting in observable behavior. Now, another example is if you constantly hear, for example, that you're too much or too intense, maybe the belief hiding underneath is, I need to shrink myself to be accepted. Now, when people frequently tell you that you're too much or too intense, it can create an internal belief that you need to basically diminish yourself to be accepted, and repeated feedback from others becomes internalized. When you hear something often enough about yourself, it can transform from external criticism into an internal belief through repetition. And because multiple people are saying it to you, you start to think that they must be right because there's now multiple people saying it. And this particular feedback suggests that there's something wrong with your natural expression or energy level. And the subconscious may form a protective belief that you need to shrink yourself to be accepted as a way to basically avoid rejection or criticism. And this hidden belief then will influence your behavior, and you might start holding back, filtering yourself, or toning down your natural enthusiasm. It becomes part of your identity level programming that affects how you show up in the world. And this is basically how external feedback can create limiting subconscious beliefs that then shape your actions and experiences. Now, with the hidden beliefs now exposed, the challenge becomes figuring out what to do with them. Awareness is obviously the first half of the battle. A lot of people are not even aware of these beliefs, but change requires something more. Once you uncover a limiting belief, don't be surprised if your mind tries to defend it. The subconscious clings to old programming because it equates familiarity with safety, even if it's untrue. Even if a belief is damaging, it feels safer than the unknown. And this resistance is proof that the belief is rooted deep, and it's also proof that you're on the right track. Now, the mind will come up with logical reasons to keep the belief alive. It will whisper, that's just how life works, or you don't really have control. These arguments are smokescreens designed to keep you from pulling the belief out by its roots. And so when you hear those excuses, recognize them as just signs of the subconscious protecting itself, and don't fight the resistance directly. Just acknowledge it and then redirect your focus back to the new reality that you actually want to create. Now, beliefs become basically cozy cages. You might not like the limits, but they feel familiar, and that familiarity tricks you into thinking you're safe. You might have lived at some point in your life in an apartment that you actually now, looking back, you didn't really like, but it just felt like home at that point because it felt safe and familiar. And so breaking free requires courage to actually sit with discomfort until the new belief feels natural. Now, every transformation passes through discomfort first. On the other side of resistance is always freedom, and the subconscious eventually will adapt to the new truth once it's repeated enough. So once you've pulled your limiting beliefs into the light and actually faced their resistance head on, the next phase is all about constructing a new inner reality that overwrites the old blueprint completely. So let's talk about reprogramming the mind. Now, once you've uncovered the old programming and dragged it into the light, the real work begins, meaning replacing it with something stronger. The subconscious cannot exist in a vacuum. If you strip away an old belief but fail to plant a new one, well, the mind will default back to what it knows. This is why so many people relapse into the same destructive habits after temporary bursts of motivation. A new blueprint must be installed deliberately, repeatedly, and with emotional intensity until it becomes the new normal. So the first step in building a new subconscious program is deciding exactly what you want it to be. I mean, you cannot create a powerful reality from vague desires like I want to be happier or I want more money. The subconscious responds best to precise instructions. It needs vivid, detailed imagery and a clear identity to latch onto. Think of it like programming a GPS. You can't just say, take me somewhere nice. You must give the exact destination. And so instead of saying, I want health, decide what it actually looks like. Is it earning $10,000 a month? Or instead of saying, I want wealth, decide what you want it to actually look like. Is it maybe earning $10,000 a month, being debt-free, or building a business that gives you freedom? The more specific you are, the sharper the image in your mind. Now, numbers, places, and timelines give your subconscious something solid to actually work with. And without this, the mind drifts aimlessly and your old patterns will creep back in. Now, it's not just about what you want to have, but about who you must become. And this is probably more important. The subconscious responds most powerfully to the identity level statements. Instead of I want to get fit, it must hear I am the type of person who moves my body daily and eats like an athlete. And when you root the new belief in identity, your behaviors naturally begin to align without force. Identity sticks longer than temporary motivation. And once the blueprint is actually designed, the next challenge is embedding it deep enough that the subconscious accepts it as real. So visualization is one of the most direct ways to communicate with the subconscious. The brain does not fully distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is actually experienced, which means that when you rehearse your desired reality in detail, your subconscious accepts it as truth. So you must imagine with as many senses as possible. Don't just see the image. Try to hear the sounds, feel the textures, notice the smells. If you're imagining wealth, picture the weight of cash in your hands, or the sound of payments hitting your bank account, the feeling of walking into a room with quiet confidence, the notification on your phone, for example. The more real it feels, the more your subconscious locks it in. And 10 minutes of vivid immersion beats hours of half-hearted daydreaming. Even a minute of vivid immersion can beat hours of half-hearted daydreaming. So pair the imagery with elevated emotions like joy, gratitude, or certainty. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. When you feel the joy of already having the thing, well, your subconscious wires it in as if it's already real. And you don't need to wait for the external result to actually feel the emotion. You can generate the emotion now to create the result later. Every time you feel the new state, your subconscious builds a stronger case that this is who you actually are. And a quick tip here, if you're not the best in terms of imagination, and it's hard for you to always imagine these things, you can actually just do it once and then just write out everything in very vivid detail on a piece of paper or on a Google Doc, for example, and just read that over and over again. And as you read it, you imagine it. Now, vivid imagination lays the foundation, but without reinforcement, the old programming will creep back in. And this is where repetition becomes key. So the subconscious mind learns by exposure and consistency. It doesn't change because you thought a new thought once. It changes because you've introduced the new thought so many times that it has become the default. This is why daily rituals are so critical. So, for example, in the morning, the first thing in the morning before your conscious mind floods with distractions is prime time for installing new programs. Visualize your desired self, repeat empowering identity statements, and set the tone for your day. Now, the mind is most suggestible after sleep because the subconscious is still active. So starting your day with new programming prevents old loops from actually hijacking you. Now, at night, right before sleep, is another golden window. Whatever you think about last sinks directly into the subconscious as it takes over during sleep. Each day, by affirming the identity you're building and imagining yourself already living it. And this will create a cycle where your subconscious replays the new program all night long. Now, repetition alone won't stick if you don't back it up with evidence. The subconscious trusts action over words every single time. And so every new belief must be confirmed by small daily actions. This is how the subconscious accepts it as real. So if you tell yourself you're a confident person but keep avoiding conversations, well, your subconscious calls your bluff. But if you step into even one uncomfortable conversation and prove to yourself that you can handle it, the new belief starts to gain strength, and it becomes faster and faster if you actually do it. So start with small, winnable actions that reinforce the new identity. If your blueprint is I'm a successful entrepreneur, then take one action daily that actually proves it. And so each small win will send a powerful signal that the new program is true. And these actions build upon each other, creating a snowball effect. As I said, it becomes exponential. Now, you must act as if you already are the person you want to become. Walk, talk, and make decisions from that identity. The subconscious responds more to the embodiment than to empty affirmations. You actually have to, I'm sorry, but you actually have to take some action and act like this type of person that you're trying to become. So when you act in alignment with the new belief, your subconscious no longer sees it as a stretch. Over time, this closes the gap between who you were and who you've become. Now, once the new blueprint is imagined, repeated, and confirmed with action, the final layer is learning how to live it fully out into the real world, so it becomes second nature rather than something you have to force. So let's talk about embodiment and action. So rewiring the subconscious only comes full circle when you begin living as the person you've programmed yourself to be. So it's not enough to just visualize. You need to or to repeat affirmations and take occasional small actions. You need to actually embody the new identity. So true manifestation requires you to fully take on this new identity, to step into it in your daily life until it becomes natural, automatic, and unshakable. And this is where the blueprint stops being an idea and becomes your lived reality. So you don't manifest what you want, you manifest who you are. And that's why identity level change is the most powerful form of transformation. The subconscious responds more to who you consistently are than to what you occasionally say. If your self-image conflicts with your desires, the subconscious will always side with your identity. So start saying, I am instead of I want. I am disciplined. I am confident. I am abundant. These statements anchor your subconscious into identity instead of lack. And at first, they might seem a bit weird. You might feel weird saying them because maybe you feel like you are not this person yet. But if you say it enough times, and if you actually take these small actions that we talked about earlier to embody these statements, well, then over time you are quite literally becoming this person, and it won't feel like a lie anymore. So these statements, as I said, anchor your subconscious into identity instead of lack. And when you declare it often enough and back it up with action, your subconscious stops treating it as a stretch and starts treating it as reality. Once the subconscious believes it's true, well, your actions will start to naturally align without as much resistance. You won't even have to think about it because you're just this person now. And so living your new identity means no more waiting until you feel ready. You show up as that version of yourself right now, today, in small ways and in big ways if you need to. And so if your new identity is a successful entrepreneur, you don't wait until you hit a revenue goal to behave like one. You start carrying yourself with the mindset and the habits of that person today so that you eventually get the results of that person. That's how it happens. You change first and then the results happen, and not the other way around. It's not first results and then identity afterwards. So each consistent act becomes proof that reinforces the subconscious blueprint. So once identity is solidified, the next piece is behavior. And because actions are what anchor the identity in reality. And so the subconscious learns by what you do more than by what you think. Every choice you make tells your subconscious who you are, which means every action either reinforces the old story or strengthens the new one. Embodiment is about making decisions from the new identity instead of the old. So ask yourself before every choice, does this action actually line up with the person I am becoming, with the person I am, in other words? If the answer is yes, then you do it. If the answer is no, then you drop it. That simple practice is what rewires your life faster than almost anything else. And so this removes endless overthinking because the question creates clarity in seconds. It's literally, does this align? Yes or no? It's very binary. And over time, your actions build a stack of evidence that convinces your subconscious the new identity is real. So actions build on themselves. The first few may feel a bit awkward or forced, but each one builds confidence, and confidence builds momentum. Now, momentum creates more action, which deepens the belief, which then fuels even more action. And eventually, what once felt unnatural becomes effortless. So as behavior starts to align with the new self, the next challenge is maintaining emotional alignment, because emotions are the fuel that power the subconscious. So the way you feel on a daily basis either strengthens or sabotages your manifestation. You can't embody abundance while walking around in a constant state of fear, doubt, or frustration. Your emotions must match the identity you've actually chosen. So don't wait for circumstances to give you the feeling. Generate it now. If your new self is actually confident, practice walking, talking, and breathing as if confidence is already yours. If your new self is abundant, then cultivate gratitude and generosity even before the money has arrived. And spend time each day deliberately stepping into the emotional state of the version of you're becoming. The subconscious records the emotion as evidence that this is actually real. Now, when you slip into negative emotion, don't panic. Use it as feedback, because it's your subconscious signaling that old programming is trying to sneak back in. So shift it very quickly through gratitude, movement, or visualization. The faster you correct, the less grip the old emotion holds. Now, once your emotions line up with your actions, the next step is to build environments that reinforce the identity instead of fighting against it. So you can only embody your new self fully if your surroundings stop dragging you back into the old one. Now, environment includes not just your physical space, but also your relationships, your routines, and even the media, the books, and everything you actually consume. Every piece of information. So everything around you is constantly reinforcing an identity of some sort. If you surround yourself with people who expect the old version of you, well, they will unconsciously pull you back into it. You must either set firmer boundaries with them, which with certain people is easier than with others, or elevate your circle to people who support and reflect the new identity. And so you can spend more time around people who already embody the traits and the results you actually want. And their presence alone will actually pull your subconscious upward, because you're now in a completely different circle, and your subconscious will already start thinking like, why are we in this circle? Something must have changed. And so your physical environment should feel like it actually belongs to the identity you're stepping into. So if your new identity is clean and organized, then clean, organized, and intentional spaces will reinforce that clarity and growth, while clutter and chaos will reinforce the old stagnation. So upgrade your environment piece by piece, from your clothes to your workspace to your home. Every upgrade basically tells your subconscious, this is who I am now. This is the choice I'm making, the vote I'm casting for this new identity. And once your environment supports the identity, what seals the embodiment is persistence. The discipline to actually stay in it long enough for it to hardwire into your subconscious. And the subconscious doesn't rewrite itself overnight. Embodiment requires repetition over time until the new identity is not just something you practice, but something you are. It becomes inevitable. And the people who transform their lives are the ones who stick with it through the days it feels natural, and through the days it feels fake, and where it feels like a lie. So you must decide that there is no going back. The old identity is dead. And every step forward is reinforcing the new one. And every decision you make answers to that new identity. So this decision is more powerful than motivation, because it eliminates any other option. Every time you show up despite resistance, you tell the subconscious that this is actually permanent. You are this person. Now, embodiment is about believing before you see. If you wait for the external world to confirm it, you'll never make it stuck. You'll always feel stuck in that old identity. So you must walk as if it's already yours, even when there's no proof yet. And that leap of faith is what will lock you in the subconscious, that will lock the subconscious belief faster than anything else. Eventually, the external proof does show up, because the inner shift makes it inevitable. Because as you become this person, you will start taking the actions of this person. And so the external will materialize from the internal. And so living as the embodied self is what turns manifestation into something predictable instead of something mysterious. And from here, the final step is just tying it all together into a clear path of review and actions. So as you can see from the review, what we covered is the power of the subconscious, we went over uncovering hidden patterns, reprogramming the mind, embodiment in action, the review, and finally your action items for the day or the next few days. First, take 15 minutes today to identify one limiting belief and write out the opposite empowering belief that will replace it. And repeat it out loud and visualize yourself already living as if it's true. Each morning and night, spend 5 to 10 minutes imagining your desired reality in vivid detail, pairing the imagery with strong emotions until it feels real in your body. And finally, take one action today that reflects the new identity you're embodying, and it doesn't have to be massive. What matters is that it just proves to your subconscious that the change is actually real and happening. With that being said, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, comment below, and let me know what you enjoyed and what you would like to see. If you want to work with me personally one-on-one, then book a call from the second link in the description. If you want this document along with this training and free group coaching calls every week, then join the free community from the first link in the description. With that being said, again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one.